All right, so my name's Dave. I was actually, I am terrified up here right now. Sorry. So I have been in the MSP space for about 15 years, dedicated the last 12 to completely developing automation. I have designed, implemented, and deployed countless tools. I am personally trying to get better at collaboration. I'm sure you guys can hear by my banter. I am an introverted person, and being the center of focus is really freaking me out. So I am actually working personally trying to get better at collaboration, and I am really nervous up here.
I love beer too, man. So.
Thank you.
Favorite hot sauce?
Oh, jeez. I don't really have a favorite one right now.
Like them all?
Yeah, I just,
Good answer.
whatever looks good, really. Thank you for that. So I pretty much wanted to go down my process of creating a problem, identifying a problem and creating a solution. So we're going to identify the problem. We're going to gather all the requirements, build a prototype, develop our solution. We're going to test it, lots of testing, and attempt to deploy. This follows very closely to the DevOps lifecycle. We really don't have to go much deep into that. It's pretty close to what I have covered in the previous slide. Just goes over in depth what the DevOps lifecycle is. And it's not just for software, it really does apply to anything that you write, any tools that you create. So the first thing that we're going to do, or the first thing I need to do, is identify the problem. And there's several ways to identify a problem. I like to actually host regular office hours. This is something I've started recently. It's a great way for your coworkers to communicate with you directly. I like to actually showcase some automation, and you pretty much keep it open. Any questions go, I'll answer any question that comes to me through these office hours.
Do you do that weekly?
I do it bi-weekly, every other Thursday. Gives me time to recover. Try to catch any repetitive tasks, look for ticket trends, try to catch people doing manual workarounds. That's a little harder to identify because technicians work on their own. Something I'm actually bad at is shadowing techs and trying to review the postmortems, trying to work that out. And then just ask questions, what do you hate doing? So this is actually a recent problem that was given to me actually Thursday. We implemented a tool that changed all of our billing contacts for all of our clients, right when our financing department wants to bill all of our clients. So there's a bit of urgency to this. So we need to gather our requirements. Talk to the stakeholders. In this case, it was my boss that came up to me, told me the issue. Obviously, I'm working with him directly. The finance department has what they want. So we're asking the questions. We're defining what's the information that we need to collect and what is the information that you want to get out of this. Try to identify any edge cases that you could possibly come across. And try to catch any error conditions. And if there's any documentation that they can provide, that's always a bonus. So I asked the questions. Is the contact, so the contact in the Bill 2 section of the company, because I'm not quite sure, I don't actually have access to that. So he sends me a screenshot. I don't have that because there's too much personal information in it, showing me exactly what he's looking for. And then I'm asking more probing questions. That one's actually pretty rhetorical. I'm just saying it so I have it on paper. It is rather important. And I'm trying to find out what is the scope. Am I looking for all the clients that have status is active? At this point, the conversation came to my door because it was just faster. So we laid down what it was. He agreed. All clients that have this active status, he wants basically a CSV. It was all of our clients, and then first, last name of the billing to contact with the email address. So finance can sift through it very quickly and find out which one's broke. So with that information, we go to prototyping. I'm going so fast. Anybody have a question? Slow me down. No? I don't have a template. It's really just, yeah, it's really, you're trying to get information, the avenue that you're going to collect the information. In some cases, it's just a deployment of a software. Who needs it? What are the parameters of where does it go? And
if you go back to, there's one slide that's like input, output, and there was a couple before that. I think that explains
some of the stuff I'm looking for.
I didn't catch all of it.
Few back. Come on. Define your inputs, outputs. Try to identify any edge cases. Try to catch any error conditions. That one's a little harder to do because you don't know what's going to be an error condition because you don't know what your data is going to be until you start working through it. But if you can try to guess at it, really. If you're familiar with try catch, that's usually a pretty easy one to identify errors.
How do you identify your edge cases? Do you have a formalized process?
Just asking questions again. So in this one, the example I'm doing, the edge cases comes down to missing information. And you'll see that here soon. And I will apologize. After we get through the gathering requirements, I do have some code on the screen, and I can almost promise you, you will not be able to read it. I'm going to do my best to transcribe what's up here. So prototyping. You want to build something small and fast, just to prove that you can actually get the data or do the task at hand. Utilize things like command line or quick scripts. I'm actually, in this case, because I'm using APIs, I prefer to write in C# for that, so I'm going to short scripts is more test cases. Sorry, unit tests. That's the word they use. Validate early with the user. As soon as you got some information, find out from the user, is this what you're looking for? And they can tell you, yes, that's what I'm looking for, and we can continue building on the process of the tool in this case. And do not expect to use the first version. It will be rewritten so many times. And in the case of this, there was additional requests that I kind of just threw to the side. So with this being an API call, how many of you have actually used APIs? Anybody? How many of you know the program Postman? Okay, then I'm not going to go too deep into it. So I promise you, you can't read it. Using Postman, I was able to collect the list of all of our clients, and in that list we have a property called billing contact ID. Using that, I was able to then pull up all the contact information of that ID. So I took that back to the stakeholder. I said, hey, I do have the data. I can throw this together. It's doable.
Do you use Centralized PSA?
We do. Yeah. The reason why I was able to write this so quickly is because I use a class library. We'll get to that here in a second. Keep your code modular. I reuse that code so many times, I can just keep calling it without having to rewrite it over and over again. And so this is what I was getting at, where it's going to get a little bit bigger. Be very wary of feature creep. I am not even done prototyping this, and he's already attaching features to it. The request was to, can we make a snapshot so when this happens again, we can restore from that snapshot and not run through this over and over again. He basically said, this is the second time this has happened. Can we stop it? So now that our proof of concept works, we are moving over to the development process. And modular is key. I've actually been building my class library for a while now. So what you're looking for is modular code, work with error handling, and do some logging. The error handling helps you identify where your script is breaking. Again, try catch is a great tool for that. Anytime you're making a call, try catch will tell you what is breaking. And logging, if you're making a script or a tool that makes changes, you want to keep track of those changes. Without logging, I have several tools that nobody would know it was doing something, and trying to chase down a ghost in the system would be nearly impossible. Keep the code simple, readable, and reusable. Again, I apologize, it's not going to be readable. I'm going to do my best to say what is up there, but I promise you it is readable here. So, I slapped this together. Basically what I'm doing is I'm grabbing a list of all of the companies that have a status like active. I'm basically cycling through all of those companies, grabbing the billing to contact. That is right here. I've got my contact from my company in my for loop. And I'm throwing them all into a CSV object, which gets defined up here. That's our header for the CSV. I cycle through all the companies, just building a CSV. So let's test it. Oh, I'm ahead. Testing. Define testing. So yeah, you do unit testings. If you're in the environment, PowerShell is not exactly fun with unit testing. But when you do test, do it in a development area. I was originally writing this for a different problem, but this one just felt so juicy, and I'm glad my boss is not in this room with me right now. So you want to test your code if you're making changes in a sandbox or a dev environment. Try to simulate edge cases. When it comes to unit testing, that's easier because you can inject an edge case. PowerShell, you can probably just give it some random variables. Pester?
Pester is a module for unit testing with PowerShell.
Thank you. And if you're feeling real risky, you can do some testing on some real users or a dry run if you are very confident. I don't recommend that last one. I don't know why I put it in there. We're going to move on. So, testing my script that I just wrote. There we go. So we ran it and we came across an error. So trying to identify, so inside grabbing the contact from the API, we got a null reference of an object. The next shot's got what the actual, our billing contact is null. There's nothing in that field. Back to the development. So we pump in a test for that. This is not the screen I was looking for. Oh, yeah, yeah, it is. Yep, thank you. I was reading down here. Thank you. So yeah, if the building context is empty, I'm just going to put null in the 3 fields, showing that there is actually nothing in there. Let's test it again. You guys going to guess what the next one is? We have an error. And this one, let's see, is another null field. This one, the contact ID, does it exist? Yep. The contact does exist, but inside the contact, the property for communication items is missing the type for email. This one only has one object in it, and that object is a phone number, and we needed an email. So this was a little harder to suss out because of the type the object was. So I just said, if the value I got back from email is null, give it the string null. So now I've got a variable here I'm passing into my email CSV with the word null. So that is working. Back to testing. More errors. So this is where you're trying to identify your edge cases and your error handling. I did not do a very good job of this. My error handling is through testing right now. And in this case, we now have a missing property communication items. So we have a contact ID, and that contact has no communication items, no phone number, no email, nothing. So that's why we failed here again. Didn't even get to our next value because it doesn't exist. Back to the dev board again, and we write another null check. If communication items itself is empty, again, give it the name, the string null, the word. Success. Return type 0. It had no errors. The text in there is text returned from my class library. Normally I'd have more logging, but I'm in a time crunch. But we have a problem. We have 14,000 companies in my CSV. Our scope was too broad. We have 14,000 companies that is active, or a form of the word active. So he came back and gave me some more filters to look at. Anybody who's got the type, data gate, customer agreement, customer break fix. Back to the dev board. Very easy. I said, if I got no types, exit or continue back to the top. Or if it's missing any of those in the name, in the type, again, just exit. We run through it again. We got 390 clients in that list. That looks like a better list. At this point, I give the finance people the list by the screenshot you can see. And we can actually now go back to the dev board again and build a product that he asked in his feature request to create that snapshot. But again, I was writing this for a different thing, and I didn't continue down that route because of a time crunch. Normally, this would be deploy the product, teach your users how to use it. It's great if you have a peer to code review you, or peer or code review. This is where you would set up your monitoring and logging for your automation, because automation is never really done. You always have to come back to it and refine it. You leave automation alone long enough, it will stop working. This is a great time to now build your instructions for the technicians to use and document the process. And announce with some training. I like to showcase new great tools that I build through my office hours. And if you're building a process that makes a change, now is a great time to build the reversal of that process and start from the very top all the way back down. You should now have all your edge cases and information to build a reversal. You guys got any questions? I am flying through this.
How are you using .NET to run automations? Are you running on the server, like with the task scheduler?
So yes and no. I do have a dedicated server for my API calls. I don't trust my code running on a client's machine, especially if it's doing API calls. That should never happen. I wrote this process a while ago, but it's almost like a 3-factor authentication. I have a encrypted string. So this is how I use my API calls through authentication. I've got an basically encrypted string. I pass that to the code that will decipher that string with another passphrase, basically the salt. And using a certificate that's installed on the server, decrypt in Azure, what's the word? Azure Key Vault access code, essentially. Pull the keys from my APIs out of that to then run my API calls. And that script will only work on 2 machines, my work computer and my API server, using that certificate that's installed on it. It will not work without it.
Possibly more code into this conversation. How are you doing, how do you handle logging or error reporting? Do you have a data table that you're tracking? Or?
I have a folder with a bunch of text files.
Cool, okay.
So my logging not only writes to a text file, so we use Ninja, and I'm actually having Ninja call the API script in its activity view. It will output what it's writing in the log files as well. So any of my technicians can easily look at the time frame the API ran and look at what it did at that time. Because if they're looking for, I have one that does server reboots, and it will tell you which servers it rebooted at what time. So they're looking for time frames. And if they're really in a pinch, they'll ask me to look at the logs on the server, because I can fly through those much faster than going down an activity list. Yes?
Have you been playing with how to leverage AI with the automations that you're building? Maybe if you leave it alone too long, it breaks, which is something I've experienced internally. Maybe finding a way for it to help you with that.
So using AI to monitor and log your automation, I haven't looked into that. I might now.
Or leveraging it as triggers, or
So the most I've used automation for is, not automation, AI for, is to spoon feed it a function I'm trying to do. It's actually a lot easier than going to, what's that website that I don't use anymore? Stack Overflow, that's the one. Ever since AI, their traffic has gone way down. I'll feed my questions to AI, and my note-taking inside the code has gotten really bad. So I just ask AI, can you comment this for me? It does a really good job. That's the extent of what I use AI for when it comes to programming.
Feed it all your tickets and have it tell you which ones are repetitive.
You know what? We are actually working on something like that right now. So.
Are the 2 lengthiest steps in your process gathering the information from the stakeholder and
No.
then testing? Or where do you spend?
So I don't know if you guys saw the screenshots. They actually had some timestamps on that I left on purpose. It took me all of 2 hours to build that. Gathering information was probably 10 minutes. From start to product, we got our finance team that list in 2 hours from request. The most of the time was spent in the dev testing, back and forth.
And is that testing time is decreased, the better that you can identify and build in the edge cases?
Yes, that usually helps through the gathering information if you can identify those edge cases early on. Had I known we were actually hitting 14,000 clients, we probably wouldn't have null values. Only the clients that have actual information that we're working with is in the 390. So had I known a better scope, we probably would have had fewer errors. But it's actually better now if I wanted to search our entire client base.
Have you thought about additional tooling around this, like a PIA, Roost, N8N, like those kind of tools, or is there a reason not to?
I don't have an answer for that because I don't use Roost. I don't use those other tools either. No, at least I don't recognize them.
It's open source and you can self-host as well as.
How do you say it?
Officially, it's N8N.
Right.
People, you just call it N8 or
Yeah.
whatever's going to be.
I've heard of them recently, and it's on my list to dive into that because I'm more of a do-it-myself type of person. I've seen Roost model. They've actually demoed for us, but it wasn't a fit for us because we have a dev team on staff, and it just seemed like a lot of money wasted to bring on another tool to do what I was already doing. All right. Best practice recap. Error handling and logging, as we spoke, helps you identify issues that you could possibly come across. With our error handling, we were just actually, the code was crashing on us. And logging would be a great way to identify changes that have happened. Try to keep your code flexible. My code wasn't very long, but if you actually looked at my class library, it is much, much more in depth. We were able to just call the command and get back the results we wanted. Review your code and test thoroughly before you go live. There were times in my very early days where I was more chaotic with this process. Learned my lesson, and I'm terrified to press the go to production button. Essentially, I thoroughly check my stuff now. And collaboration is key. I'm not going to lie. I worked solo for a very long time. It wasn't until recently, doing my office hours, that's actually a new thing for me, where I have actually been getting too much work. Because everybody's now saying, I need this issue fixed. They're actually understanding what I do in the company now. Before this, I felt like nobody knew what I was actually doing in there. So engaging with users early on and often, that's with my office hours. I'm trying to stay on top of issues. Let others shape tools. In this example is probably the feature request. This quick report is going to be a tool. I'm sure there's going to be more requests on top of it around contacts. And again, office hours. Show off your tools. Because without technician buy-in, nobody's going to run your scripts, so why even write them? Some final takeaways. Automation is more than writing code. It's a product lifecycle, similar to the DevOps lifecycle. It's constant maintenance. Involve your users early on to help build the right thing. And build for growth. Again, back to my class library. Don't want to keep rewriting the same code over and over again. Essentially, in PowerShell, it's a module. The word's there, just trying to reach for it. And get feedback. Your tool is going to continue evolving as you build it. I can tell you, anytime I revisit a tool, it always gets better. And that's just word salad. Any other questions?
Yeah, how do you document the tools and scripts that you make internally? Is there like a favorable way that you document it?
We just have Word documents, just SOPs, or we store it in a SharePoint.
How are you handling jobs that have to run over and over again?
So I mentioned that earlier. I keep all of my API at this time applications on an API server, and we use Ninja for our RMM, and it actually on a schedule calls those executables.
Oh, so you're scheduling the actual executions being triggered from Ninja?
I'm cheating at the logging. Yeah, I am writing logging to an actual folder, file logs, but it's also writing it to the console. So whatever it's showing on the console will show up in the Ninja activities.
That was a big problem for us when we were running automations on the servers. It was like, how do you trigger it? Task
Yeah.
schedule or what?
Write output. Trigger it? Yeah, it was just a schedule script in our RMM. Anything else? I'm so far ahead of schedule.
Just think you're thorough. People don't have any questions. It's 15 minutes. All right.
I'm ready to drown myself at the bar, so. All right, well, thank you. And then sponsors.